Hi everyone, we have got a full moon in Scorpio coming up next week on the 12th or the 13th of May, depending on where you are in the world. For us in the UK on British summertime, it's happening on Monday the 12th of May at 17:55. So this is happening for us. We've got this full moon bringing that illumination, but also allowing us to work with that lunar energy to support us with detachment from cycles and releasing. There's a few interesting things within the astrology at the time of the full moon, and of course I will pull up the charts and show you. But most notably, we've got two YODs. So a YOD is a finger of God. We've got two YODs going on in the chart. And we've also got various conjunctions of note. We've got Saturn and Ceres in an exact conjunction at 28 degrees of Pisces. So getting towards the end of Pisces there. And we've also got an exact conjunction between Chiron and Pars Fortunae in Aries at 24 degrees. With the sun and the moon in opposition, which happens in a full moon, we have got the moon in a conjunction 2 degrees away from Juno, and the sun is 1 degree away from Vertex. So we've got some conjunctions happening, and those are quite pivotal to what's going on, particularly the moon and Juno, because they are within these YODs. So I will come on to that and I will show you. But there's definitely something here about that illumination of the depth of feelings when it comes to what we're committing to, any contracts that are going on at the moment, and certainly things that might have been hidden. Because when we think of Scorpio, we think of going to the depths of the soul and really unearthing the sort of mysterious hidden elements. And full moon with that illumination, we could be seeing a lot of that. So there could be a lot of clarity coming forth in relation to those aspects. But let's pull up the chart and we'll go through those aspects and the alignments for you right now. So let's just share the chart. Okay, here we go. Right, so if you've not seen one of my astrology reports before, what I do is I show you the chart, and it's really the chart as a freeze frame of the cosmos at the time of the full moon. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have got here the full moon in Scorpio, 12th of May for us in the UK on British summertime, 17:55. And I do draw certain aspects and alignments that I'm guided to, that I'm intuitively drawn to, okay? But there's a lot more going on, as you can see in the middle there with the aspects, but those are the aspects that I've been particularly drawn to. And this is to show you really what the planetary energy is doing, okay, at the time of the full moon. So we can say, oh yeah, it's a full moon in Scorpio and that means this, but there is a bigger picture with astrology as always, okay? So we look at the other things that are going on around it and it gives us that bigger picture. And of course, when we put our natal charts against a lunar event such as this or any other astrological event, it can show us how the energy might be influencing our own journey, okay? And I will do this with the UK's chart very shortly, and that gives you context with the house system, okay? So we're just going to look here at the aspects. So we've got the moon here at 22 degrees of Scorpio, of course, in that direct opposition to the sun, because for a full moon, the sun and the moon are in direct opposition. We are in Taurus season, and so therefore the moon is in the opposite sign of Scorpio. So absolutely, those kind of hidden feelings coming up to the surface, going deep, and really having to feel into things, almost embracing the deep feels here. And the conjunction I mentioned earlier with Juno is there. So 22 and 24, there's 2 degrees difference, okay? And Juno can symbolize love and marriage. So I always view it as an asteroid that represents commitment, but it's also an asteroid that I associate with soul contracts, okay? So there could be something going on here with regards to some illumination regarding commitments, regarding to hidden commitments, hidden contracts or hidden aspects of contracts, okay, however that might resonate, if at all. But certainly on the other side, there is that commitment to the depth of our feelings, okay, and it's heightening that for this full moon. So commitment to the depths of our feelings and therefore being open to seeing and feeling what those might be. The Sun in opposition, of course, close to Uranus, but there is more of that closeness to Vertex, the Vertex point, okay, which is just a marker in astrology, and at the point of the full moon, this is where the Vertex point will be. So there is something that is fated and destined here about this moment of the full moon. And we've had various things going on in the astrology recently that have also been very aligned when you think of that, the fated moments and fated opportunities. So this is, you know, no different to that really. And when we think of Uranus and we tie Uranus in with that as well, there is this essence of change within our physical reality. So it's very destined, fated at this moment in time, certainly within Taurus season, to be focusing on our physical reality and the material world that we are navigating. Now, remember, the North Node is in Pisces at the moment, so we are moving forward on that path that's more ethereal, that's more 5D, but we are, of course, navigating a 3D reality. So there is some emphasis here on that with this full moon, because, of course, we understand from that soul essence of the cosmos that we have that earth energy, we have that grounded earth energy reminding us that we are here on this planet in this 3D reality and we need to navigate it. But we also need to appreciate, with the moon in opposition, that we can be almost fighting against the depth of our feelings in terms of what is truly within the soul. So when I said earlier about, you know, Scorpio is about going to the depths of the soul and almost bringing up what needs to be seen. So what is hidden and needs to be seen, but also what needs to be transformed, because there is that scorpionic energy of death and rebirth here. And I'm talking about that in a metaphorical sense, because it is profound transformation. It's not surface level. Pluto rules Scorpio, and we know what Pluto's been doing. So we're forging ahead in this new reality, but we need to understand that we have to feel these things in order to make changes. And we have to go deep with those feelings to understand. And being committed, with Juno there reminding us of being committed to the depths of our feelings and what does need to transform, allows us to then focus on the changes in our physical reality. But there can be opposition, because it feels almost to me like it is a bit of a leap of faith versus the comfort zone. And that's not an uncommon thing to be feeling when there is change. You know, when there's change going on around us, it can feel a bit unsettling. And therefore, you know, we don't want to kind of like leave our comfort zone, because it's like, oh, there's too much change going on. But when we realize the depth of what we know to be true is part of this change, because we are profoundly transforming and we can shift our reality in that way very powerfully, then we are part of that change. But it is that sort of leap of faith within ourselves to trust ourselves enough to go deep in that, to be committed to that in order to then experience that change in our physical reality. But of course, it's the material world. You know, the Taurus energy is that material world, and we need to feel worthy of the change that we're trying to create, and also that everything is in alignment with our values. And as we evolve, our values might change. So there's naturally going to be situations, people, whatever it might be, that fall out of alignment with that. And again, the moon will bring us back to the feelings in terms of how we feel about all of that. Lilith, Vesta and Poseidon are also in Scorpio. So there is that churning up of things for us to see on an emotional level, as well as understanding what those deep desires are that we hold and what shadow aspects might have been holding us back previously. And again, it's being committed to understanding the depth of that in order to transform, to create the change. Okay. So illumination on the full moon could be bringing up a lot of that. And if we're already aware of it and we know what we're trying to release, the lunar energy can support us with that. Certainly when we look at the scorpionic energy versus the Taurus energy. Okay. And if we look at the other opposition that I've marked up here, which is Mercury. So Mercury is also in Taurus at this point of the full moon. I think it's the 10th of May, Mercury is ingressing into Taurus. Okay, so time of me recording this, he's not in Taurus at the moment, but he will be for the full moon. Okay, so that's going to bring that grounded essence to communication, but coming from a place of worth, knowing one's worth. And here there is opposition to Lilith. So there is something that does need to be looked at with regards to not only shadow aspects that could have, I want to say, inhibited our communication previously, certainly where we have wanted to make changes, or maybe where we've not felt worthy enough of expressing ourselves in relation to the change that we want to see. But also, you know, understanding, because Vesta is close by to Lilith, and that's feminine energy, okay, but it's light and shadow feminine energy. And it's understanding what it is that truly does spark that flame within, and have we been pursuing that, or have shadow aspects been holding us back? Have we been suppressing those deep desires because we've not felt able to speak up? So we are in this physical reality, and Mercury is in Taurus, and it's like the grounded essence of communication, but feeling worthy enough of speaking up in relation to what it is that we are wanting to create in our reality. And there's certainly Empress vibes to Taurus. And there is something beautiful about that energy of knowing what we want, but knowing that we are worthy of receiving what we want as well. But we've got to look at the other factors as well, because we've got to balance that light and shadow, and we need to understand. And that's where the moon comes in again, because it's like we've got to understand our feelings around all of this. And it might be something that we have suppressed, that we've really wanted to do. And we're working through all of this on our healing journey, but there's still things that come up that remind us of these shadow aspects that we need to address. But we're becoming more in tune with what they are, because we're going deep, and we're committed to going deep with Juno in Scorpio there. And recognizing that if we're aware of what we need to release, we can start to work with this energy to release, or at least have this almost plan in place to kind of, you know, go through the process of acknowledging and understanding what this is bringing up for us, what is being brought up to the surface for us to see and to feel, more importantly. Okay. Now, I mentioned about those other conjunctions, and I'll just come down here first of all. So Saturn and Ceres, 28 degrees. Okay, the minutes are slightly different, but they're close enough. And let's face it, they're all close there. Even Neptune, even though Neptune is in Aries now, but there's still that closeness in terms of degrees. And the North Node is there. So at the tail end of Pisces, you know, we're still needing to receive those lessons from Saturn to get us in alignment with our spiritual truth. And Ceres wants us to plant the seeds that we wish to grow in our reality. And this is more on a spiritual level. So are we actually nurturing our intuition through meditation practices, or just having that sacred space for us to have 5-10 minutes, if we can, to actually tune in with ourselves? So to forget about the noise going on outside, but to focus on ourselves and what we need and what our intuition is guiding us towards, to understand the lessons that Saturn might be posing and certain tests and things like that. Saturn is bringing structure to this mutable sign that doesn't like structure. So for the time he's been in Pisces, and trust me, I'm a Pisces, and I've felt this period that he has been in Pisces, it is very testing. But these are valuable lessons for us, because we have to understand what is not in alignment with our soul's truth. And this links to the detachment, to the releasing. It also links to what Lilith is showing us, because she is also a great teacher, just like Saturn, but does it in a different way. Saturn wants us to you know, get on with things, and we need to understand what's not in alignment for us so we can progress forward on this path. And we're supported now by this North Node in Pisces, allowing us to surrender as much as we can, and to not have so much control of the outcome, which is the Virgo energy of the South Node. So we need to kind of detach from that and go more with the flow. And that can also feel uncomfortable. So we're having to sort of learn what Saturn is teaching us, get in alignment with our values, get in alignment with our spiritual truth. Okay, and only we're going to know what is true for us on a soul level if we're tuning in to our inner compass, our intuition, and allowing us to be guided forward in that way. And certainly when Neptune moved into Aries, it felt like, for me, and certainly I said this in my previous astrology report, that, you know, this is a sign that represents the subconscious, Pisces, you know, and Neptune, that planet ruling Pisces and being an outer planet as well, giving those kind of signs and messages to the other planets, because Neptune can see from outside, you know, on the periphery of the solar system, if you like, and is giving those messages, which is why, you know, Neptune rules Pisces, because there is that subconscious, spiritual, psychic aspect to it. It's very karmic as well. But it felt like, because of going from the Piscean energy of the hidden into Aries, which is all about the self, it felt like, and that's cardinal energy as well, it was almost like a massive awakening opportunity for the collective. And of course, with that, you do get those feelings of, oh, whoa, things are shifting, things are changing. Let me hold on to my comfort zone. But we're being encouraged to move out of that as much as we can, if it's in alignment with our spiritual truth, of course, and how we're navigating this reality moving forward. So Saturn is still playing a pivotal role here. And towards the end of May, okay, I think it's 24th, 25th, depending on where you are in the world, he will be ingressing into Aries. And he's going to be there until I think it's the 1st of September. I've written it down somewhere. And then he will retrograde back into Pisces, because then he'll be in Pisces until February 2026. But he's going to give Aries a bit of a taster of the lessons. And it's a wake-up call, because he does not mess around. Okay, so that is almost foreshadowing what Aries will then experience when he moves back into Aries the second time, after he's completed the full period of time in Pisces. So Aries will get a little taster. He'll move back into Pisces. It's another window of opportunity to revisit those aspects of alignment with soul's truth. And then he'll move back into Aries. Okay, so that's obviously 2026. So yeah, there's still some time here for tests, lessons, and so on. And he is also really asking us to put boundaries in place where we need to. So that's another thing on our journey that we're needing to understand. So if I link that back to the full moon, you know, understanding the depth of those feelings and potential shadow aspects that may have held us back, or the deep desires that we've been suppressing. Well, okay, has Saturn been showing us anything in relation to that? Have we not really had our own boundaries in place? So this is where we look at the bigger picture with everything. Okay. The other exact conjunction is between Chiron and Pars Fortunae. So the pot of fortune, Pars Fortunae, 24 degrees of Aries. So collectively, the healing journey at the moment is about sovereignty and really stepping up and being the leader of our own life and coming from a place of the self. What do I want to do? What is it that I want to pursue? What is good for me? And it's cardinal energy. So it's about, you know, getting going with things, taking action and being quite bold. But because Chiron is there, that is part of the healing journey, to heal the sovereignty so that we do feel that we are able to stand up and be the leader of our own life. And there is something in this moment of the full moon that is, of course, very fortuitous, if I say the word correctly. There is success here when we can align with our sovereignty. So we need to understand, first and foremost, that we have to come from a place of the self and what it is that we're wanting in all of this. So all of the feelings that the full moon might be bringing up, the illumination of that, and understanding what it is we do need to release and detach from, that is helping us heal But equally, as we step more into that sovereignty of focusing on ourselves, we become more aware of what we need to release and detach. So it works both ways. But ultimately, we need to be committed to the depth of what is being shown to us with the moon and Juno, Scorpio, and also to come from a place of the self. What do I want? What is important for me in this journey? And that's the Chiron in Aries. And there is great success when we can do that. Okay, success for us on our journey. It's more of that empowerment energy, it feels like to me. And you'll notice that there are a couple of green triangles, not green triangles. There's a couple of white triangles. Sorry, I was looking at the green line. There are a couple of white triangles. I will come to the green line in a moment. Apologies. I don't know whether to blame that on my Piscean brain jumping ahead and just being a bit all over the place. Apologies. And I'm still a bit congested as well. There's lots of clearing going on with me at the moment. So apologies. So yeah, basically these two white triangles that look almost like a flag, really. Those are two YODs. Okay, so a YOD is a finger of God, and it can provide great insight into something we need to focus on, because the finger of God, the YOD, is pointing towards something. We need to pay attention to that, and then we've got things going on at the base. Now we've actually got two YODs in this full moon chart, so that's quite intense energy. And the moon and Juno are involved in both of these YODs, okay, because one YOD is pointing to them and the other YOD, they're at the base. So if we look at the one where they're at the base, first of all, okay, they're at the base of this YOD along with the South Node in Virgo, and that one is pointing towards Chiron and Pars Fortunae that I've just mentioned. So the emphasis here is on the healing path when it comes to sovereignty that I've just mentioned. There is emphasis on that. We need to step up and be bold and be determined and to be brave in terms of what it is that we want. And almost propelling us forward into that focus is, you know, the feeling of what might have been suppressed and hidden. The commitment to what it is we're needing to feel and understand. And also detachment from anything that's not serving our highest good, but detachment from expectation of outcome, trying to control the outcome of a situation. Okay, so it's almost like we need to have some element of surrender and depth in order to really focus on our sovereignty. So as we detach from needing to sort of control everything or needing to know everything, and we are also committed to feeling these things that need to come up. So the flow energy comes more from the Virgo energy because that's mutable. But we need to have that commitment with Juno there to what is coming up in our feelings that might have been hidden. And that is allowing us to stand up and be counted as that leader of our own life. And as we focus on sovereignty, we do look at those aspects of, okay, right, this is what I want, but maybe I have tried to control the outcome of a situation in the past. So I need to just release that. And yeah, this is what I want, but maybe these feelings are coming up for some attention and I need to understand why. And because I've got this sort of like lens of leadership now, I can view it from that sovereign place and say, okay, is that right for me? Is that what I want? And is it in alignment with that? So looking at that, Chiron and Pars Fortunae is obviously at the base of this other yod, along with Jupiter in Gemini, and pointing at the moon and Juno. So we do need to focus on what the moon is showing us, absolutely, because that's the yod is pointing. And we need to understand there might be commitments that we need to look at. And perhaps at the base here, the growth and expansion that Jupiter can bring could be inner expansion. And I say that because of the healing journey that we're on. I would normally say it's inner growth and expansion if Jupiter was in retrograde, but I'm feeling it's more inner growth that is allowing us to focus, because we are evolving and we are growing and we're understanding things. And with the Gemini energy, there is something about looking at something from a different perspective, or taking a wider perspective here of things, being curious enough to kind of like look into things. So, okay, Chiron, Aries, I'm healing my sovereignty because I need to understand that to get what I want, I need to be brave, I need to be assertive, and so on. But maybe I need to look at something from a different perspective, and that's enabling that inner growth. And by doing that, I can focus on what my emotions are telling me, and I can focus on my commitments. Are they working for me? Have I been holding myself back in terms of any commitments or contracts? Okay, when we think of actual contracts or soul contracts, and what is that telling us? So it all kind of like works hand in hand, because as we accept those deep feelings that the moon might be showing us, that is also going to allow for growth and expansion. But Jupiter will also bring hope. So by understanding the sovereign path and having hope that by pursuing the sovereign path, there will be growth and expansion, allows focus on what we need to detach from, because this is what our emotions are saying. This is what the moon is showing us. And it could be that we're needing to detach from soul contracts, commitments that are not in alignment with our sovereign path. Okay, so take that as it resonates. But there is still this message of detachment, because we've got the South Node in the mix with one YOD. We've got the moon there as well, and it's the full moon. So as well as the illumination, it's also about releasing. Sovereignty is connected to this, the cardinal energy of Aries, leadership, being bold, being determined, being confident, and being assertive in that way, having that dominance, okay, for your own life and what you want. And the success that can come from healing that enables more of the releasing that needs to happen, enables more of the growth if we can look at things from perhaps a different perspective and understand why these things have been suppressed in the past. And also just trying to release expectation of outcome and any control of how things should be. Okay, removing ourselves from that kind of perfection viewpoint. Okay, going back to the green line that I mistakenly said was a green triangle in my haste before, we've actually got quite a beautiful trine here between the masculine and feminine energy. So Mars in Leo and Venus in Aries at this point. So both fire signs. The cardinal energy here is Aries, so it's almost started by the feminine. So that's the desire to create and also to nurture, but there is a need to be open to receive. Okay, and Mars is, of course, bringing forth that energy of taking action, and there is courage that's needed, and there's also an element of being seen because of showing up. So when we combine that with the Aries energy, with the sovereign path and the healing journey, if we show up as our authentic version of self, and we're in alignment with, obviously, you know, Saturn teaching us to get us in alignment with our spiritual truth. Okay, so we're showing up as our authentic self, but we're showing up with courage based on what we are trying to take action on and what we want. Mars rules Aries, okay, and Venus is there. So the dominant feminine of wanting to create what we want to create, and coming from that place of kind of fiery passion as well. It's almost like needing to show up with courage to be seen and recognized for that authenticity is part of the healing journey as well. There is a nurturing essence to this also, which is led by the feminine energy, but also the need to be open to receive. So yes, we can show up as ourselves, but we need to be open to receive that which is in alignment with us, that can be reciprocated back in that way. And that might take courage, but we've got the masculine energy here that brings forth that courage with the Leo energy. It could be that there are sort of creative endeavors specifically, because Leo can also represent that, but it's certainly aspects that come from the heart chakra, what brings that joy. So very, very key message here, where we're balancing out the masculine and feminine, which is ultimately what we're trying to do within ourselves. We've got both essences within us, is to, you know, have that desire to create from that dominance, and also recognize that's part of the healing journey, but the desire to create, but also the courage to show up for ourselves as ourselves, to then be open to receive recognition back as ourselves. So what I mean by that is showing up as our true self and then being seen as that true self. Okay, I hope that makes sense how I'm saying it. So it's kind of like we show up as who we are, with that boldness, with that assertiveness, and with that desire to create what we want to create, and then ultimately be open to receive being seen in that way, because that's what we're giving out. Okay, we want to be seen as that, so we need to be open to receive in that way. Okay, the desire to take action, absolutely. Courage, determination, okay, that fire energy to propel us forward in the pursuits that we want to do based on what we want, but also with that authenticity there as well, and recognition for ourselves in order to receive that recognition, but to be open to receive that recognition. That's the balance of the masculine and feminine. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just show you the chart against the UK's chart very quickly, to give you context on the house system. Okay, so here we are. So the inner wheel is the UK's natal chart, and the outer wheel is what I've just shown you. So what's in the middle is what I've just shown you, but it's in a smaller circle, so it looks a bit messier on this view, but it's just meant to give you that depiction and to show you how it applies to the house system. Okay, so we've got this here marked up. For the UK, the full moon will be happening in the 5th house. Okay, and so therefore the sun will be in the opposite house, the 11th house. So when it comes to, you know, physical reality, certainly connections with others are at play here. And looking at the 5th house, that is that is the house of the heart chakra. So it does revolve around our creative artistic expression, as well as the joy that we want to experience, okay, by doing what we love to do. And it is that heart chakra vibe. Okay, and so we look at that, and we've actually got, with that conjunction with the moon and Juno, we've got Juno in an exact conjunction with the UK's natal Pallas. So Pallas can symbolize strategy, and also as a warrior goddess, there is something about fighting for what we want. So this is about being committed to the fight, metaphorically speaking, for what we want. In other words, what we want to pursue, but having that gusto within us to apply strategy where it's needed. Okay, so things might be revealed in the full moon, the depth of certain things that might have been suppressed, the commitment to understanding that. And then if it's something that actually we've wanted to pursue and we haven't because we have suppressed things or there's been shadow aspects, then it's about then applying strategy to put the wheel in motion to then get things done, because we're fighting for what we want. It's in the 5th house, so we want to feel that joy. Okay, so there is emphasis there on commitments that we're wanting to fight for, soul contracts we're wanting to fight for. Okay, and understanding that the physical reality when it comes to our connections with others needs to be looked at, and certainly with the sun there 2 degrees off the UK's natal Venus, there's absolutely something to do with values. So connections with others that align with our values, and where change might have been needed because Uranus is there as well. Okay, it needs to be looked at. And the YODs, okay, so we've got the 5th house there, the 10th house, the 3rd house, and also the 11th house. So definitely relating to the heart space, as I was saying, the 3rd house of expression, the 10th house of inner authority and work, okay, and also the 11th house of connections with others. So we need to look at that, and focus is definitely on the heart chakra, what brings us joy, what it is we want to pursue. And also the focus is on, you know, work. So is that something that we're wanting to do? Is what we're doing for work what we want to do that brings us that joy? And, you know, is it challenging our inner authority in any way? So looking at that is part of the healing journey, because that is where Chiron is, okay? And we need to look at that because Mercury is also there. So we might need to speak up if it's something that does challenge our inner authority within our physical reality, okay? The material plane that we are navigating, okay? And we could still be learning lessons from Saturn because Saturn is there in the 9th house, okay? And then Mars and Venus, well, Venus is just there at the cusp of the 10th house, and Mars is in the 1st. So the courage comes from the self. So that is Aries energy, even though we've got Leo there, but Mars rules Aries anyway. There's the link. So yeah, the courage comes from the self. And what do we want to do? What do we want to take action on? And allowing us to create from a place of inner authority, that dominance that Venus in Aries can bring, okay, in order to nurture ourselves through this journey and to show up and be seen for who we are. Okay, there's also this conjunction here with the South Node and the UK's natal Lilith in the 3rd house. So yeah, definitely detachment from anything that's challenged our expression, and where we might have held ourselves back in terms of speaking up based on what needs to be cleaned up in terms of cycle closeouts and so on. But also when we think of that, you know, releasing control of how things need to be, one shadow aspect might be, well, it has to be a certain way. I am going to express that this has to be a certain way, or it has to look like this. And the South Node is hovering over it now, well, on top of it, saying, no, we've got to get rid of that viewpoint. You know, we need to bring some surrender in here, please. So therefore, you know, allowing the essence of the transiting Lilith to show us within our foundations, 4th house, what might be being deeply suppressed and why. So why might we have felt things have to be a certain way? Is that because we've always been told that it has to be a certain way? Because we've got some ego in the mix? Because we've had peer pressure that things have to be a certain way? Because society tells us things have to be a certain way? Is it because we believe we're not worthy enough of having something that we want, so we believe it has to be something like this? You know, it's looking at all of that might be coming up, okay? But essentially, you know, the opposition is between for the full moon, particularly the 5th and the 11th house for the UK. All right. So just a whistle stop tour there of that. Yes, so I hope that finds you well. Of course, if it resonates for you, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, because we still have free will. You know, even when we look at astrology, it can show us these aspects and certainly can explain why there are certain energies at play, and you know, how we can work with that energy to maximize our own potential. But we've still got the free will whether we do that or not. And you know, we've got a lot going on even still this year. You know, there's still planetary movements into other signs and then retrograding back. So the theme of beginnings and endings continues. I've mentioned this before in other astrology reports. So we're in a 9 year, we're in the year of the snake. So there is that metaphorical shedding of the skin as well. It is major death and rebirth. This year, we are having to close out cycles that are not serving us. And it is profound transformation. It doesn't mean it's pretty, doesn't mean it's without challenges, but this is about profound transformation to get us in alignment with our spiritual truth, and also what our inner compass is, you know, guiding us towards. And that is the true path. That is the ethereal path that is connected to our higher self, you know, our path. But we are navigating a material 3D plane. So we need to understand I want to say like the rules of the game. There we go. Yeah, we are understanding the rules of the game, and we need to navigate it in such a way that is of benefit to us and not detriment to us. So it's understanding how the energy can work for us, and recognizing that if there are lots of emotions coming up at this moment in time, particularly if you're sensitive to lunar energy, but generally with lots of cycle closeouts and certain illuminations, revelations, awakenings, and so on, there might be lots of emotions coming up to be purged, and that's okay. Might not feel great at the time, but this is about clearing. This is about releasing and understanding that we're making energetic space when we do that, but we're understanding why it's coming up. It could be from something in the past of this lifetime. It could be from past lifetimes. There is a lot of that going on. There's a lot of ancestral healing going on. There is a lot of lineage patterns and trauma being cleared out. I mean, it's intense. So we need to understand that if we can roll with the energy, work with the energy for our own benefit, then that's going to help us navigate forward. But we must remain in that essence of sovereignty and coming from a place of spiritual truth. So what is in alignment with my soul, not what other people tell me I should be doing, what is in alignment with my soul, and what do I want, and how can I get to that point? What do I need to do? Does it need a bit of courage? Does it need a bit of boldness? Does it need a bit of understanding what's coming up from the depths, what I've been suppressing? You know, what might it be? And recognizing that there are more and more people awakening to who they are and understanding who they are and why they're here. And so there are lots of kind of patterns that have not been healthy for us that are being quashed. They are just being released. And that can be the step out of the comfort zone that is feared by a lot of people, because we tend to kind of stick with the familiar. And these times at the moment are asking us to step away from that. And that can feel uncomfortable, but it's part of the path. It just requires us to check in with ourselves and to give ourselves, and this is all part of self-care and self-love, by the way, to give ourselves that time and that space to really understand what we are showing ourselves. So via our intuition, so our higher self connection, that source energy that's running through us, are we accessing that gift? Are we understanding what we need to do? And this is before the mind jumps in with the worries and fears. This is about what our soul is showing us and guiding us towards for our highest good, and how we can get there in this physical reality. So I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but if it resonates for you, it will make sense, I'm sure. I'm sending you love and blessings for the full moon, which is, of course, next Monday. So I'm recording this on Monday the 5th. So it will be next Monday for us in the UK, and in Australia, it will be on the 13th. But of course, you know, as the lunar energy builds up and the moon gets more full, if you're sensitive to lunar energy, you might be feeling certain aspects beforehand, okay, and also a little bit afterwards, because lunar energy does sort of remain for a bit. So self-care, salt baths, I will always advocate those. Cleanse your aura, and yeah, just stay in tune with your soul's truth, okay, and remember to come from a place of sovereignty with boldness and assertiveness for what you want, and the courage where needed to show up as who you are, as that authentic version of yourself. No fake versions. Authenticity is the key here. I'm sending you love and blessings, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.